Right, so this is a reminder of how to do polar derivatives if you're given r, something like r is equal to 1 plus 2 cosine theta. All right, so what you're going to do is you're going to remember that x is equal to r cosine theta from your triangle. This is theta, this is x, y, and r. Cosine of theta is x over r, but we put this r on the other side. So x is always r cosine theta. Go in there armed with that, and y is r sine theta. Make sure when you take the derivative to find the slope of the tangent line, you put dy over dx, put the dy on the top. This is created by dy d theta and dx d theta. It's just kind of tedious, but very doable. So what you're going to do is you're going to take dy d theta first, the derivative of y with respect to theta. So I'm going to do the product rule. First times derivative of the second plus the second times derivative of the first, which is dr with respect to theta. And then I'm going to do this one. First times derivative of cosine, which is negative sine theta, plus second times derivative of the first, which is dr d theta. Then you just sub in a bunch of stuff. So dy dx is equal to r cosine theta plus sine theta dr d theta over negative r sine theta plus cosine theta dr d theta. These r's can be subbed in with your radius, 1 plus 2 cosine theta, 1 plus 2 cosine theta. And then from this, I can find dr d theta. Dr d theta, derivative of 1 is 0, the derivative of this is negative 2 sine theta. So that's dr d theta is negative 2 sine theta. Okay, so that's the derivative. Then they'll say it's something like at theta equals, like, say, pi over 2. So then you'll say the slope, it's kind of like dy over dx is dy dt over dx dt, or dy d theta over dx d theta. So now I'm going to say, I'm going to fill in pi over 2. So I have 1 plus the cosine of pi over 2 is 0. Cosine of pi over 2 is 0. Sine of pi over 2 is 1. Makes that negative 2. On the bottom, the cosine of pi over 2 is 0. The sine of pi over 2 is 1. The cosine of pi over 2 is 0. So this gets knocked out, and you have negative 2. And this gets knocked out, and this gives you negative 1. And so you get 2 for your slope of your tangent line. If you needed x and r, x and y, you've got the information here. All right, so let's just sort of set up another one before we move on. Let's say r is equal to 3 sine 2 theta. You're going to need dr d theta to build. That's going to be 3 cosine 2 theta times 2, so that's going to be 6. You're going to need to know that x is r cosine theta and y is r sine theta. Every time you do a slope and polar, you have dy dx, so this is first times derivative of, that's just sine theta, plus the second times derivative of the first with respect to theta. And here you have first times derivative of the second plus the second times derivative of the first. Then you start subbing in r is 3 sine 2 theta, cosine theta, sine theta, dr d theta is 6 cosine 2 theta, negative r be negative 3 sine 2 theta times sine theta plus cosine theta times 6 cosine 2 theta. And then they would say it like pi equals pi over 6 or whatever, and you fill that in for theta, and you'll get your slope of your tangent line.